you. Ja, spijt me, ik moet in Engels praten. So. Okay, where are we? So, as a young girl, I used to be a very good gymnast. I was very proud of the fact that I was what they call double jointed. My body would do anything I wanted, and I even represented my region in some of the championships that we had. I never thought about being double jointed again after being finished with my gymnastics, apart from all the cool things and weird things that my joints would do with my hands. So they used to be my party tricks that I would show people, all these really weird things with my hands. I wanted to start my story really, and I think the wrist surgery, my first wrist surgery, is really the starting place. I started probably about 10 years ago now with quite a lot of pain in my wrists and my arm. At first, the doctors said that it was probably RSI, which made a lot of sense. I use the computer all the time. I don't take enough breaks, and so therefore they started to do physiotherapy. Didn't get any better, just got a lot worse. And gradually they found that there were actually cysts growing in the joints of, or the joint of my wrist. And that needed, of course, surgery to remove it. I particularly wanted to start with this as it's a good illustration, I think, of where my mental state was as well at that time. I'd spent all my youth and past really kind of coping by myself, never really expecting any help from anyone, never receiving much help from anyone. And so I just got on and did things by myself. And this was symptomatic of the surgery that I needed. It was several years after I'd got divorced. I'd got no family here, a few friends, but I didn't really want to ask anyone to take time out of their busy schedule to take me to hospital. So I decided, knowing that I wouldn't be able to drive home, I'd get the bus. So it seemed like a good idea at the time. The actual operation was one of the worst experiences of my life. The surgeon didn't believe that the anaesthetic wasn't working, so he went ahead anyway and started to dig out the cysts. I cried, I fainted. He bandaged me up and sent me off, and I got the bus home, but at least I hadn't bothered anyone. Several years after that, I started to develop really severe pain in my feet, particularly my left foot. They decided that the only thing that they could do was to remove some of the bone in the foot and adjust some of the tendons and everything. So I worked from home for about 3 months. But you can see that Shell, they gave me all the equipment that I needed to actually be at home. I spent several weeks in the wheelchair, of course, and it took a long time for the actual foot to heal. And during this period, of course, I was limping, I was walking in a different way. And that kind of manifested itself with all sorts of different aches and pains, which started and gradually got worse and worse. And I am my own worst enemy, and I usually am in denial about most of these things. So it probably took a year or so before I finally went to the physiotherapy. Really couldn't take all this pain. Everything seemed to hurt. He was the first person to actually put a name on what I had, and this was hypermobility. This means that all my joints work far harder than most of your joints probably do. They move much more than they really should. Now, osteoarthritis is a result of that. A lot of people do get that when they get older. It's a normal part of getting older and the deterioration that you have with your joints. But with a hypermobility, this happens, of course, a lot faster, and this is what's happened with me. Now, of course, all the different joints that you have require a different doctor. So you have to go to the foot doctor and the hand doctor and the knee doctor. But basically, all the conclusions were the same. I had osteoarthritis in most of the different joints that I had. The conclusion was also the same, that there was nothing that they could actually do about it. It wasn't going to get any better. I was going to be in pain for the rest of my life, and it was just going to get worse. So I'm back to my denial. This is not happening. There really has to be something. Part of the biggest problem is that painkillers just don't work. I don't know why. I would be the world's worst drug addict, I think, but painkillers just do not work. So this was really where I started to think, okay, now I really have to accept this now. I've got to deal with it and just get on with it. What am I going to do now? Around that time, I can't quite believe still that this has actually happened, but I met and married Stefan. And this is really a turning point in my life. He has made it his mission, I think, to find all sorts of gadgets that will help. He takes over all the jobs that hurt, and it's okay to let him do that. I feel that caring from him every day, and this is really, really an instrumental part in me being able to accept what's happening to me. Somebody actually cares about me and allows me to care about myself. I'd like to share a story with you that I think illustrates how this has really transformed my way of thinking about the problem that I have. I loved ceramics. I'd made my own little ceramic studio in my house, in my own little spare room. I'd got my own kiln, my own wheel. It was something that I really, really loved. But as the hand pain got worse, the strength in my hands also got much less, and I just physically couldn't manipulate the clay anymore. That was really devastating to me. But eventually, after some time, I sold everything. I admitted that this is never going to get better. I'm never going to be able to do this again. So I sold all my equipment, kept the door very firmly closed. But that year for Christmas, my husband, Stefan, bought me canvases, he bought me an easel, he bought me paint, everything that I actually needed. And he said, try painting. And if that doesn't work, we'll find something else. And it turned out I love painting. So this was a really good sign for me to focus on what I can do, find what I can do, and not focus on what I can't do anymore. But this illustration of caring is just really a fundamental part of me being able to accept it and embrace that business about what can I do, not what I can't do. Oh. So finally, here am I accepting what's actually happening to me. And I thought it's time to come clean at work. So I eventually went to see the Shell Health people. And I had always felt really that my challenge really wasn't something comparable to everybody else's challenge. We've seen some really inspirational stories today, and I always felt that the challenges that I had really didn't compare at all to that. But when I actually went to see the Shell Health physiotherapist, he was so kind. He really made me feel that I was important. My challenge was important to Shell. And he made some really important recommendations for me. One of the first things was, of course, about a sit-stand desk. Then I could vary my working position as well. This is several years ago now, so it was quite new, really. We didn't really have those things in Shell at the time. I have a special mouse as well, so I can hold my hand in the same position or in a good position for the problem that I've got, and I don't have to use my thumbs. But the most transformational, I think, was the voice recognition software. Shell had actually adapted this package to work in our very tight IT environment, and it enables me to speak to the computer, dictate what I want to say, and the computer actually types it for me, so minimises the amount of keyboard activity that I have to do, which is tremendous, of course. But that also brings its own challenges. Shell has a very strict open office policy. So, of course, the microphone not only picks up my voice, but it picks up the rest of people's voices, which does crazy things to voice recognition software. I don't know if anybody is familiar with using it. Yes, there's some nods. So, but I try and use humour with this. Obviously, I'm in my own little office, which is very special and different. And so you get a lot of very strange kind of looks, what's she doing there and how special is she? But so again, you use a bit of humour. I have to do that because the voice recognition software also makes some really crazy interpretations of what it is that I'm saying, especially with names. So Henk Bartels, a colleague of mine, when I dictated his name, he became Pink Bar Towels, which... And Matthijs, another colleague of mine, he actually became Mike Tyson, which he was quite pleased about that, I think. But I always send the emails far too fast. I don't check them properly, and so there's some really crazy ones. But my colleagues feel comfortable enough now to say, "What on earth were you trying to say in this sense?" So it's a blessing and a curse. Oh, where am I going now? So, yes, you can see that I also need some additional support. These braces, and this is a small selection of the ones that I've tried, actually gives a lot of relief. It kind of comforts the wrist. This is a slightly different one. You can see the larger one. I need to have some more protection for this one, but it's very visible. Of course, that's really the only visible thing about the condition that I've got. And the colleagues that know me, everybody's used to it now, but of course you meet a lot of people who are not used to it, and so you get lots of sympathetic, oh, what have you done? You know, have you broken your wrist? And in my head I'm saying, no, it was the ninja fight that I was in that's caused the problem, or I was wrestling a shark and I tore a ligament. But of course I never think of those things quick enough in my head, and I always tell the truth. And then you get the sympathetic looks, and people will then tell you that their grandmother has that. And I thought, that doesn't really make my day, I have to say. But, you know, we really need to move on. But we have a network in Shell called Enable. It's a disability network. I'd never considered myself to be disabled. And I think like many other people, I see disability as something which is more visual. You can actually tell that somebody's disabled. And I think a turning point actually was when I was coming back through a Bangalore airport in India last year. And there was one of the queues was for differently abled people. And I thought, oh, okay, here's another politically correct phrase. But then I thought, do you know what? That's me. I'm differently abled. I do things in a different way now. I need a different type of support to enable me to do things that I could do before, but I can't do now, and that other people can do quite easily. So I went back to the Netherlands and I immediately contacted Enable and started as a volunteer for their organisation. And I'm really proud to say that I've recently been asked to take over as chair for the Netherlands group of Enable. Yeah. And I'm really excited about this because it's been such a journey for me to accept what I've got and to know it's never going to get better, but to focus on what I can do about it and how I've also felt comfortable to be able to speak up, to be counted, to be one of the people who can use my own story to try and encourage other people in Shell to also speak up, also give their own story with something that's not visible and something which we tend to keep more private, more quiet. Ask for help, ask for support, see how we can use the technology that we've got in Shell to be able to help other people, but also the caring that we've got in our organisation to encourage that safe space for people to speak up and to be able to share their story as well. So yes, my journey continues. I'm really looking forward to it, but it very much is about what can I do, not what can't I do, and trying to make sure that in Shell we actually work together to make sure that everybody feels that they have a safe working environment in which they can share these different challenges that they've all got and get the most out of all our employees and make them feel that they're actually in a caring environment. So, thank you very much.